welcome everybody. Welcome back after lunch. Hope you're all fed, eaten, watered. And this is the YouTube Myths, Business and Opportunities session. I'm Alex from alex.live. If you saw my earlier session on live streaming, I have a background in live streaming and YouTube and work with multiple social agencies, working with multiple YouTube influencers as well. So I'm pretty well versed in this, but more well versed for me on the stage is Cherry Wallace and KITPLUS. Cherry, do you want to introduce who you are and your channel as well?
Yep, so I'm Cherry Wallace and I run a YouTube channel which is just Cherry Wallace. I do a lot of things about Harry Potter and the wizarding world.
You take things out of boxes.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's an amazing channel. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. And Chris, where do you come in with all this?
So I'm basically Cherry's lackey. Technical, should we say consultant. I do a lot of editing, a lot of putting up cameras, and a lot of tolerating Cherry. Doing a lot of organising the videos and making sure everything works properly.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll start with you, Cherry. We're going to have a kind of informal chat about some of the myths of YouTube and also the opportunities that are there. How did you actually get started in making videos in the YouTube world? Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It was about 7 years ago. It started as a hobby. I was actually a consumer of YouTube first. I used to watch a load of different people, and I thought, well, that looks fun. So got myself a webcam, a Logitech one that sat on the top of my monitor, and I gave it a crack and made little videos by myself in my bedroom. It's a very weird thing to do when you've never done it before. But it started just by doing it one time, and then I put it out into the world, realized other people did it as well, and that people started to watch slowly at the beginning.
Do you remember the response you got from that sort of first few videos?
I thought it was absolutely wild that 10 people clicked on my video. And then one video, which we don't mention, no, it was me mixing Coke and milk together. Disgusting.
Classic YouTube video.
Classic. But I started that, and it just went viral. And it's one of my most viewed videos, even to this date. But it just blew my mind that hundreds and thousands, millions of people from around the world are watching. It's very bizarre.
How did you go from Coca milk to the niche of Harry Potter?
That's a great question, actually, because the niche that I'm doing now is fairly new, probably the last 2 to 3 years. Before that, I was kind of dancing through different
We did
genres.
sketches for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, so I started doing comedy sketches. I'm not a comedian, but I thought that that's what people wanted to watch. Okay. A lot of my friends were doing that, so I definitely jumped on a bandwagon there. And then I moved into more beauty and lifestyle things because I love playing with that in, my own personal time as well. And, it took years to really find something that wasn't really being done and that I personally enjoyed. And it started with, I think it was a PR package that was sent to me from Warner Brothers. It was something to do with Fantastic Beasts, and it was this cardboard case. And I unboxed that thinking, people aren't going to like this. It's nerdy. It's Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts. And they did, and I found that there was an audience for it, that there was other people that enjoyed, stuff that I did. And it kind of opened my eyes, and then I kind of ran with it, and here we are. I'm doing it full time now. All of my content is based around the wizarding world, and yeah.
You mentioned there, it started as a hobby, and now you're doing it full time.
Yeah.
What made you take that leap? Because it's quite a big decision to say, I'm gonna go full time into this.
Yeah, I don't really remember a point where I thought, I'm going to make this a business. It just kind of happened naturally, which I guess could sound a bit weird. But
do you remember how you went about actually doing that?
I finished uni when I kind of started doing YouTube videos. My plan was to actually become a primary school teacher, but I started doing videos and saw that there's an audience for it, and income started to come around on YouTube at that time, and I was just like, this is something pretty special that YouTube has going on here. And I found a community which was wonderful. Yeah, I don't recall thinking, oh, this is going to be a business. I just didn't want to quit. I'm not a quitter, and I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to see how far that I could take it, and now I'm here several years later with an employee, and it's my full-time job, 7 days a week, working with some incredible brands and companies, such as Warner Brothers, and I've got management as well. It's just spiraled to what it is now, really.
Chris, how did you first get involved and when? Because it wasn't actually that long ago.
No, I mean, so I've only been working with Cherry full-time since
February this year, yeah.
But we've actually been friends for a while beforehand. We actually met on, I was working on a small feature film, one of these indie small budget ones, and Cherry happened to be in it, and I was the sound recordist in it, and that's how we ended up meeting. We ended up meeting, and then becoming friends. Mm. But what was slightly strange was how did I get involved?
Well, we worked together on that film and made friends on there, and then I knew that you were very tech savvy, which I am not, I'm just putting that out there, and anything technical, and I knew that you could edit as well, so I always came to you if I needed help with anything, and I realized that, wow, this guy could actually really help me with many things, career-wise. And
up for debate, that one sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, and then you slowly, he started helping me as a friend, really, for free, which blew my mind.
It was never intended to be a business. I mean,
No.
That's actually one of the interesting themes about everything that's kind of happened, is when Cherry first started YouTube, it wasn't intended to be a business, and then when I started helping her, it wasn't intended to be a business, and it all just kept on kind of growing. There's this, one of the big myths that goes around is everybody goes into YouTube for business instantly. And that's true of some people, but it's definitely...
It's not how most YouTubers started,
Most of your mates, most of your peers, in fact, nearly everybody you've showed me...
It started as a hobby, yeah.
Yeah. And it is why you see there's a kind of a certain demographic where they sit around the same kind of age. And it's kind of the people who first started using YouTube quite early. So like it is... Let's say your generation, that isn't fair. But it is, there is nearly everybody you know, and similar content creators of certain sizes are within 5 or 10 years of each other.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really interesting how it's just as much luck as it is skill, profession, and person, and just sheer work.
Yeah.
We talk about myths, and one of the ones that I think is brandished around, certainly in traditional media, is that all YouTubers are loaded.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask, don't worry, I'm not going to make the same mistake and ask how much money you make, but is it sustainable to build a business through YouTube?
It depends from channel to channel, and just to cut that myth in the bud, we're not all rolling in millions of pounds. It's just not the reality of it. Yes, there are channels that earn disgusting amounts of money, but...
Name and shame.
I'm not naming and shaming, but, for most of us, we have to work at it.
But also there's this element of it is, in the news and on social media, there's the obsession with numbers. Yeah. So if you say, we've just crossed the 500,000 sub mark, and it is everybody's kind of going, then that means you must be doing X, Y, Z. And you go, no, you could have 2 content creators, both with exactly the same sub count, but because they produce different lengths of content, or they have more active viewers, or they have actually less active viewers, you can end up in the situation whereby the numbers mean literally nothing. Yeah. So you can have some people with 500,000 subs who are earning more money than people with millions, and vice versa. And it's kind of this, the world has become obsessed with quantifying social media, obsessed with quantifying YouTube. And it's kind of hard to do, particularly when it comes down to money.
Yeah.
And we're talking about earlier before we came up here, is there's this kind of, the stigma around YouTube means that people feel it's appropriate to ask some questions that perhaps they shouldn't. So there have been more than one instance where a creator's been brought onto a news channel of some description, and they've gone, so how much do you earn? And you go, how much do you earn?
And then they won't answer, yeah.
It's a really interesting topic, full stop.
They don't like it too much when it's returned on them. But talking about monetizing it and turning it into a business, what ways have you found as successful in monetizing that content and actually starting to create a business through your content?
Are you talking about like what revenue
Well,
streams?
whether it
they
be
are?
through AdSense or you've gone down, I know you've done some brand partnerships.
Yeah,
Merch is a thing
so
as well.
the way that I get my income, there is lots of different streams. So you've got Google AdSense, which is the revenue made from
Directly from YouTube.
directly from YouTube. Yeah, so all the pre-rolls and stuff. A lot of people think that it's paid by the amount of views you have. It's not. But so that's obviously one of the main incomes, and then I work with a lot of brands separate to that with campaigns. So Warner Brothers, Disney, or clothing stores.
But those campaigns will be things like, they can either be like short little ads inside the video, or they'll provide something to.
Or they could be the whole video.
Yeah.
It varies from campaign to campaign and brand to brand. And then there is merchandising. Once you've got that audience, that's something that I've only recently started to look into, which I've been doing a project this year, which is mystery boxes. Is that the best way to describe it? Surrounding the wizarding world. So there's kind of loads of little different streams, and then there's like commissions as well. And they all kind of pot together, if you like.
The way to think about it is you're almost like a mini broadcaster. In that it is people approach to you can approach people or they approach you, and then it is you can figure out either integrations or ads or just being provided things. And the idea is that it's supposed to be. It's actually a bit of a hot topic at the moment, because there's the advertising agencies here, and the advertising standards agency is very, very good at telling you what isn't an ad, whereas in the US that's not true. So we're often approached by a lot of brands who shall remain nameless, who try and say, yeah, can we try and like put something in your video? We'll pay you, but we don't want you to say it's an ad. And that's where the revenue streams start to get a bit weird, because it's kind of, I don't want to say a free-for-all. It's not a free-for-all. But there's an element of people being taken advantage of in a way that isn't true of a traditional broadcaster, but actually you're still acting like a traditional broadcaster. And it's very weird, because you end up in this situation where you go, so I have all these ads, and I have money, and you go, what ads? I don't know the ads, they're all hidden. I go, oh, they aren't supposed to be hidden.
Yeah.
And it's why the topic of monetization is such a hard one to cover when it comes to YouTube. Because there's the obvious one, just the ads direct from YouTube, but all the integrations are a minefield.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of an eye-opener to me.
I mean, we're all still learning. I mean, it's quite a new world.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? People don't necessarily realize how young this as a platform is. I mean,
and this is a career as well. I mean, 7 years ago, YouTubers didn't exist really, as a job. You know, you've got kids in schools these days that are just like, oh, I want to become a YouTuber when I'm older.
Yeah.
And you know, they're even integrating it into the curriculums, which is fascinating on its own merit. Yeah.
I mean, you've spent the last, as you say, 6, 7, 8 years building up a channel on YouTube, which is now turning into your brand. Do you have any fear that you are building a business on top of a platform that you have no control over?
This is something I avoid thinking about. I think, I mean, I don't have any control over YouTube itself. I think it's important to kind of not stem away from it as such, but I mean, even if I was to move it to other social media, I'm still relying on a social media platform that I don't have full control over. It's a tricky one to answer. I try not to think too hard about it.
I mean, it's also interesting because it's almost it is a monopoly. It means even if you did want to think about it, there's nothing you can do about it. So like it is that people go, oh yes, so is all your earnings come from one thing? What if that goes away? And you go,
You cry in a corner.
There's always nothing you can do about it. Like as Jerry said, you can diversify, you can move into different platforms, but your audience isn't necessarily there, and your audience is your asset. And it's a really weird one to try and deal and cope with, particularly for me, because it is. I knew nothing of YouTube until I started working with Jerry. And the entire idea of putting everything in the hands of one company that can, if it suddenly fancies to turn off YouTube tomorrow, it can, is a bit scary.
I'll agree with you there.
YouTubers often say they're the beholden of the algorithm, and I can kind of understand that. So, Jerry, we talked about how you got started with YouTube, but and you mentioned it there in terms of your setup was a webcam. How has that changed since? And I guess Chris played a big part of this as well.
For sure. So it started with a webcam for quite a long while until I decided to, you know what, let's get a big boy camera. So I then moved on to a Canon
80D.
Yes, 70Ds.
Is there a reason for that?
It's what a lot of my peers were using.
Okay.
I obviously didn't know a lot about technology then, still don't. And I thought, well, their videos look great and way better than potato webcam quality. So
What are you on about, mate? 640 by 480? it is the new resolution.
We'll come on to that in a bit.
yeah, so I upgraded to a DSLR and invested in a better lens down the line, because I always thought it would be better to invest in the lens rather than a new body. And then I stuck with that for years, literally until probably this year. And I had like softbox lighting, and I bought a ring light. Actually, that was a gift, which you hated.
Yeah.
Again, another purchase because everyone had ring lights. And then Chris and I started working together full time this year. We still don't have the full kit that we'd ideally want to be using, which is, you know, there's been a lot of bodges.
Yeah.
But has that been down to budgets?
100%, yeah.
Totally. So it's kind of like, of course, we'd all love to have any camera we so desired, but that's just not feasible. So what was really interesting, actually, though, is that even though, so like, there's a lot of focus on tech, particularly here, but online, most people don't care. So long as the content, what you're talking about, what you're doing is good, and what they can see is clear, and they can understand it, and they're enjoying it, great, quid's in, top stuff. If you can make it look better, and you know, particularly audio is the big one. For some reason, YouTubers really struggle with audio.
Yeah.
So long as you can see and hear things, most people don't care. Audiences are not as critical as they are for, say, TV or film. But that being said, people do appreciate it when things improve. So when you moved to your, I think I said it was an 80D, it wasn't, I think it was a 600D. It was something like that.
I don't look
It
at
was
numbers.
an APS-C Canon of some kind.
A Canon something.
People noticed.
Yeah.
And then, so is what we then realized that actually it wasn't only the audience noticing, also the brands noticed. So what we started doing is okay, so let's focus on how can we make the videos look better, not only because we like making videos, we enjoy making videos, but how can we make them look better to our audience, which they'll like, but more importantly, improve the way it looks so that we are more attractive to brands? Because let me phrase it this way. If you were selling something, would you want, and you had two people, both of them had the same following and the same audience, would you want the one that's filming it on a webcam, or would you want the one that's filming it professionally and looks all neat and tidy? It's all about trying to create a tangible product that happens to look nice. And that's when we moved away from your Canon to my old GH4, bless it. It's had a rough life. And then it is, what we've been slowly trying to do is using, I think we really don't have that much money. So we're using used gear we can get on eBay. We're using stuff I happen to have kicking around. So it is.
We did invest in lighting this year.
We did invest in lighting. So now we have, after the, because so the soft boxes, but you know, like on Amazon, you get the 30 quid ones.
Two
with the
for
compact
£80.
fluorescents in and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with them.
They did me good for 6 years.
For the money, they did great.
Yeah.
But now we've moved over to an Aperture 120D2 as the main key, and then we have one of their little Amarans that's lighting up the shells
massive.
behind it.
That light is huge.
No, the softbox is huge.
The softbox is huge, yeah.
But it is. What's interesting is that it's now that we've done that and now that we've improved, even though it's only a small step in regards to, particularly if you look at the kit around here, it's only a small step, but we've had an increase in brand deals, and also even the audience have noticed. But one thing that's really important, for us anyway, this isn't true of all channels, but for us, one thing that's really key is you can look as shiny as you want, but if you lose the key bit, which is Cherry. Cherry is the star of this channel. People come to her to see her, as well as what she's unboxing.
And Harry Potter, yes.
So if we make it suddenly look like an ultra-tidy, ultra-polished, perfect TV studio, people, you lose the personal touch. So we end up with this slightly bizarre blend of everything looking nice and sharp.
Bit
and
of a hybrid
Yeah, it's
between traditional media and vloggers.
It is the Prius of vlogging, and we're in this strange situation whereby you end up with, it's not cinematic, but the colours look nice. So it's one big thing Cherry's not touched on here is she's got a big passion for makeup. So you do quite impressive, almost glam looks with remarkable colours.
Not today, I'm sorry.
Not today. Nor me as well. I'm really sorry about that. But so there's normally incredible amounts of colour that we can now bring out and show the audience, but I still, when we come to the editing side, I'm quite aggressive. So we still punch in, we still tell a lot of jokes. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird one. It's very easy to get fixated on the gear, but the gear doesn't really matter. But it can help you with things like speeding up your workflow, selling yourself to other brands, or if you just want to make it look nice because you want to make it look nice.
There's that big balance, isn't there, especially in the YouTube world, to making it look nice and making it look as professional and shiny as possible, but also staying authentic and still giving it that YouTube feel to the audience that knows you. One thing that I did want to ask is there's a big debate happening in the YouTube world right now between 1080 or 4K.
Okay.
So I'll kind of put that, I guess, more to Chris. 1080 or 4K, and both for shooting and then also distributing. I think,
to be honest, it is. Let me phrase it this way: I've yet to find anybody who watches 4K on Netflix, let alone YouTube. But more for me, the most important thing for us is I always advocate capturing the highest resolution possible and then distribute in what is most appropriate. YouTube's 4K implementation is not the best.
I always knock it down to 1080 when I'm watching as a consumer.
But as a content creator, it takes noticeably longer for them to process it. Ignore the uploading, getting the data to them bit. The way they encode video is quite slow, and I know it's quite hard to do.
We discovered that this year. I can't remember which video it was, but we shot it in 4K, and we decided to upload it in 4K because it was quite an important one. The processing time, YouTube just doesn't seem to be able to... They're not quite there yet with, how would you phrase it?
No, I just say there's still work to be done. It's relatively young,
but
really.
it takes hours compared to minutes.
So if we upload in 1080 in the correct codecs with everything set how YouTube wants it, it can be fully processed within an hour, if that, normally faster.
No, like minutes, like 5 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, of course, excuse me. But 4K took the better part of half a day.
Yeah.
But to bring it back around to the resolution question is, I think it's foolish to say a resolution, you must do this for this resolution, because the fact of the matter is certain resolutions are great at certain things. Like it is, I always want to, for me, I want to capture in the highest possible resolution so that I can punch in and tell silly jokes and show things off and deliberately animate things badly to make them look funny. But the fact of the matter is, YouTube works best as a platform on 1080 because it's the fastest way to deliver, and on top of all of that, we know from the analytics from Cherry's channel, the vast majority of people watch on phones.
Yeah, all right.
And unless they happen to be holding their phone up to their face, I think they'd struggle to see 4K. I think they'd struggle to see 1080, let alone 4K.
Yeah.
So for me, the question of resolution is what's appropriate for what you're doing. Because 720 is probably fine for YouTube, but if you played that on an iMac screen, not really appropriate.
Yeah. Certainly I can vouch from a live streaming perspective. We've had clients come to us and say we want to do it in 4K, and we always turn around and say, why? Especially when their analytics are showing 80% of their audience are watching it on small devices like mobile phones. There's much more value in us. For example, again, with the kickoff, we stream that in 1080p 50 because it's just a much nicer viewing experience watching it in 50 than there's little benefits doing it in 4K. I want to move on to sort of workflows because we were talking earlier, and you said speed is really the key for you. So talk us through sort of your workflow in both shooting a video. Actually, I guess from the start as well, because Chris handles all the technical side, but you're the creative side of things. So how does it go? What's sort of the calendar, the regiment looking like? How many videos? And then, Chris, if you could talk more about the sort of the process and the workflow.
I think ours is quite extreme because we're both naturally quite organized people.
Okay.
So I'll start with project management. We use Trello, which is where any ideas that I want to put into video form will go into an ideas tab. Then you've got the planning and preparation tab, and it kind of moves down a line. Then we've got the shooting, then that will move into editing to review if they're unpaid or not, and then if they're completely done. So that's like the planning of stuff. There's a lot of videos.
3
ideas
videos a
in there.
week.
Yeah, so we try to, on a good month, we'll get 12 videos out a month.
With an average length of about 15 to 20 minutes for each video.
Yeah, and you know, back before I had Chris on board, I was getting maybe 1, 2 out on a good week. So it's tripled my workload having you on board. But yeah, so that's where all the ideas kind of live, and then obviously Google Calendars we dedicate days for shooting, editing, and admin bits. But regarding the actual shooting of things, so we'll have 2 dedicated days a week to shoot. So we could do maybe 2 videos on one day, and then maybe 1 or 2 on the other day. And then it kind of rotates to your editing days and that kind of thing. I'm not explaining this very well, am I?
No, you are.
You do fine. Give yourself some credit, my love.
So yeah, we'll do the shooting together. I was about to call you cameraman Chris. I mean, you are. So he'll be running the sound and doing all the filming from behind the camera, which I never used to have. I think it took a while for my audience to get used to that.
It was actually really funny because I remembered when I first started doing the camera for Cherry, I had to keep leaving the room because you're so used to just talking to
I found
this
it really
faceless
uncomfortable.
camera.
Yeah.
And she's just going, mate, would you mind just like stepping outside? And I go, oh, but is it actually recording? I need to check the levels. It'll be fine. Just get up.
Yeah, we
really
got used
bizarre.
to it pretty quickly. But yeah, so there'll be days where I trap Chris in an office and make him edit.
Yeah, and this is why I'm here today, actually. I just want to let people know that I am trapped, and if anybody can please reach out.
Shackles are on.
I'll
So
feed you
then,
later.
In terms of, Chris, the editing process, what do you use? What sort of process do you go through?
So we actually use DaVinci Resolve because it allows us to do a few things. Our turnaround is incredibly quick. So like there are some times that we've had to shoot, edit, and upload in a day. I can't remember one recently.
Yeah, they're very long days.
But with some of the other tools, particularly editing packages, one thing that was quite difficult is you do have to follow the correct workflow, i.e. cut, lock the cut, do the mix, do the grade, get it all sorted, lovely. That doesn't really work when you've only got 2 hours to edit a half-an-hour video. So what Resolve lets us do that some of the competitors don't is it makes it an awful lot easier for us to... I should point out we're quite fortunate in that we only have 1 sound setup, 1 lighting setup, 1 camera setup. So it makes things nice and quick. But what Resolve lets me do is kind of skip ahead, do the grade and the mix early, which then means I can get back to the edit, and while I'm editing it, I can check the grade and the mix while I'm doing it, and then I'll cut the entire thing kind of almost in a not a traditional non-linear fashion, more like an old kind of VTR, literally cutting it out and hacking it and doing ripples and then getting it all tidy up. Right, that's done. But the grade's done, the mix is done. Mix is a bit strong, it's just compressing it with a limiter. But and then I can go, right, good, that's fine. And then I don't even review it. I bounce it straight away, send it over to Cherry and go, is that correct? She goes, yeah, that's fine, upload. And I've tried to do this with some of the other products, and it's like they're brilliant products, but the problem is because they're so locked in to the way you're supposed to do it. So like it is... most of them involve you having to bounce it to something else. It's like, so you go, right, okay, so you've done that, you've got to go move your grade to here, you've got to go move your mix to there, and it is just moving it from one application to the other is too long. So like, if I do that and then whereas I've made a mistake, I've got to go back, whereas in Resolve, literally, I can be in the cut and go, wow, Cherry's face is downright pink there, quickly hop back over to the color tab and go, there we go, and then go back and then carry on, and it's all correct.
In terms of, I think I already know the answer to this, but in terms of both equipment and also processes, what's more important to you, quality or the speed? Do you want the quality of the final look? So would you rather shoot in 4K and things like that?
It's a bit of both, really.
It's a bit of both. It's a very hard one because for some videos, speed is of the essence. Like sometimes a product will come out and you've got to get it out fast.
Be the first
like you
one
have to be the first one there. And then, honestly, I'll let the quality slip. Literally, I'll be really aggressive on the mix. Just put a dirty great limiter at -8 and then just forget about it. And then just kind of carry on with life. And
do the audience notice that?
Yes.
Okay.
So they have noticed that, particularly on the audio side, when I've been lazy. Jerry and I both want the highest quality possible, just because we're filmmakers. We may be producing things kind of almost like a commodity TV show at the moment, but at the core of it, we both love making films. So we want to make it look good, but sometimes you do have to let it slip.
Yeah.
Like, there are multiple. If you look at some of the slightly questionable grades I've done on an awful lot of, I'm not a colorist, I should make that absolutely clear. Some of the really questionable grades on Cherry's videos, I've only got one monitor and it's not very good, so I've not checked it against anything else. And sometimes by the time it's hit the internet, I'll go, oh, those shadows are pink. Never mind. Or you can see where some of the secondary color corrections really struggling with noise, and it is sometimes you just have to go, well.
The audience don't notice that though.
They don't notice the really
you've got
picky
a keen
things.
eye for it.
But things like audio, they do notice. So it is, because if you listen to it on a phone, I don't know whether any of you have tried to listen to, watch like TV on your phone with the speakers. It's absolute torture, because of course the dynamic range on TV or film is huge. So you're just sitting there going, oh no, I can't hear that. Oh no, an explosion, I'm now deaf. So it is, when I get lazy with the audio is when I mess up the compression. So I deliberately make it almost radio-like for Cherry's voice, so that you can listen to it on anything and not care. But that's when people notice I've messed up. Is if I get that wrong, people who are used to watching it on their phone are suddenly going like cupping it and going, oh, I can't tell what's going on.
Forgiving for some things and not for others then.
It's a delicate balance.
One of the things I want to touch on, especially in this session, is the data side of things and YouTube analytics. Do you find yourself looking at the data regularly or reading into it much?
So there's two parts, which I'm going to shift them. There's the growth of the channel kind of analytics with the subscriber growth, and then you've got the analytics that is very fascinating to look at, to be honest, like where my audience are from, how old they are, what gender they are. Like, it's really fascinating. I think with the kind of geography side and age, that's useful for brands, because they're coming to me ultimately for my audience. With the subscriber growth, it can get unhealthy. I have been, years ago, I used to check every single day, how many new people have come to the channel. It can get unhealthy. But I got past that.
But also YouTube have now forced you to get past that.
But YouTube have recently also forced me to get past that because...
I should mention, not personally. They've
changed
the way
that
they
they
do
not
She didn't get a letter through the door that says, Cherry, I'm afraid you're looking at your analytics way too much.
No, they've changed things up where how they display the subscriber number. So instead of the accurate number, it's...
rounded.
For me, it's rounded. So mine's currently 504K or something instead of the actual long number.
Yeah.
With them doing that, it stopped other third-party websites from working as well because they can't read.
Like Socialblade.
Yeah, like Socialblade, which I do or did find really useful because if I post a video and then 800 people have just randomly subscribed, I will know that it's because of that video.
Yeah. In case you're wondering, Socialblade is like a public online data aggregation platform for YouTube and Twitter and loads of stuff. And basically, the idea is that you can have a look and go, oh, I see. So when I put that video out, I got 800 more subs, or I saw the views go up, or I saw the watch time go down.
So that's how I used it, to see where I was going right, or more importantly, where I'm going wrong. You can see the drop-off.
But equally, comments are just as valuable there as well.
Yeah. But analytics is definitely important, in my opinion.
Do you use any of sort of location data to tailor your content, or any of the other data to tailor?
For sure. So the majority of my audience are from the USA. It didn't always used to be like that, but it is now. And as I do a lot of product-based content, so reviewing things or, I don't know, shopping hauls, if you like, I now convert a lot of the prices to dollars because it's more useful for my audience, I guess. They don't shop in pounds. But
you also explain a few things quite a lot. So it is if something comes from Boots doesn't exist in the US, so they'll more quickly say, and that's just a pharmaceutical store in the UK.
Yeah, so little things like that, I definitely do tweak bits of my content to fit my audience better. Just because I think it's polite to do so.
No, and I'm sure it attracts, or at least keeps those new American viewers that discovers you as well. This session, obviously, we're talking about some myths as well, and one of those that is brandished around is it too late to start YouTube now?
Ooh.
And I kind of just wanted to put that question to you, because, I'm interested to know what you think as a YouTuber.
We differ here.
Yeah, I think we'll differ. It's a fascinating question, actually. I think if I was to start now, it would be a lot harder. It would be really difficult. I know people that have tried to start YouTube channels over the last year or so. I just think it would be very difficult.
I think it is very difficult.
And also on that note, I think a lot of people that are starting now are doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
Especially the kids in school. They want the fame. They want to be rich because they think that's what all YouTubers are. And I think if you're going to go ahead and start a YouTube channel for those reasons, you've failed before you've begun.
Yeah. And ironically, many of the YouTubers that have that now don't want it.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Because it comes with many negatives.
Yeah.
But I think something you touched on there is quite interesting. So for some particular, should we say, genres on YouTube, that's definitely true. But there's also a kind of loads of new little niches have suddenly started appearing that are just exploding. Like recently, I don't know why, but retro computers have become huge on YouTube.
I think that's just on the part of YouTube you're watching.
No, but that's the point. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So the thing is, in some niches, some genres, some areas of YouTube, it's completely oversaturated. Like, take beauty, for example.
Yeah, the beauty community is saturated.
Absolutely rammed solid. If you've got to get in there, you have to have a really unique selling point. But if you get in a new niche, like retro computers, which is something I've followed for a while, you can stand out more easily, and then you can grow and then build and build and build, and then it's just as easy to start in those niches as it was years ago. So it's now that YouTube's so massive and so all-encompassing, it's a really hard question to answer.
It's really hard because, yes, hard work comes into it, but also some of it is luck. Like, I've seen channels that are brand new this year. There's this girl in a van, and she lives with a snake called Alfredo. And her channel's just exploded to, 2 million after posting 2 videos.
Wow. I need a bit more backstory than that. There's a girl in a van with a snake called Alfredo.
She lives in this van. She's converted it into her home on wheels.
Okay. To be fair, I know another channel called Blue Van Man, and it's literally a man in a blue van that does food reviews in his van.
They're living their life in vans. Go for it.
This is actually a really interesting. So the almost rather terrifying targeted advertising way that Google works with YouTube makes this quite interesting, because I have no idea what they're talking about.
You get all the computer stuff. We get all the cool snakes in vans.
Cool. I've never been so offended. No, it's a really interesting view as to how YouTube works. One thing could be wildly popular for you, because literally, if you go on my homepage, all it is retro computers and then Jeffree Star.
To me, it's very boring, apart from Jeffree Star.
But then if you go on Cherries, I probably wouldn't recognise any of the creators, any of the topics, any of the videos. It's bizarre.
And that's how much data Google has on you. I will kind of finish up with one question, because I know we want to take questions from the audience as well, which is, if you could change one thing about YouTube today, what would it be?
Your username.
What was that?
Cherry's username.
Oh.
Hey, I got a vanity URL. It's just Cherry now. It's fine. If I could change one thing,
because you've been on the platform for a long time, you've seen it grow.
There's a lot of things
just be able to change a video. Like it is like Vimeo. If you make a mistake, you can replace it.
No, not even that. And I think YouTube are trying, but listening to creators as a whole, we're working on their platform. I think little changes here and there that they maybe don't listen to.
Well, verification, when they suddenly took that off everybody.
That was fascinating, actually. That was really interesting. Yeah, they tried to take everyone's verification off them. And the whole community was just like, what? We've worked for that. And, you do. The reason verification is there, to me, it's not like, oh, look at me with my verified tick. It's more, you get a lot of scammers in comments. It's protecting your audience. You get a lot of, oh, look at this free iPhone giveaway, and it looks like it's got my display picture. It's got my name. If I don't have that little tick, my audience can fall for that and then get into some serious trouble.
It's like a vote of confidence.
But they did listen to us that time. Then the next day they kind of fixed it.
The fact that that's not the norm. Oh, yeah, that was...
Yeah. I completely understand that, and I know some YouTubers that do say they feel unlistened to by YouTube.
Yeah,
because
not heard.
it is. It's hard to get in contact at times, especially when it's just one thing to do with your account.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this session. Thank you, Cherry. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome,
And
thank you.
enjoy the next session.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.